The smell of antiseptic never quite leaves your skin when you're a nurse. No matter how many times I scrubbed my hands raw under scalding water, that clinical scent lingered like a ghost, a reminder of the 12-hour shift I'd just survived at Pinewood General. Outside my small rented cottage, the October wind whispered through the pines that surrounded our little patch of land, carrying with it the earthy perfume of decaying leaves and rain-soaked soil. My hands trembled slightly as I fumbled with the old brass key, the metal cold against my fingertips. "Mommy's home, Lucy," I called softly, knowing Mrs. Peterson from next door would have put my 5-year-old daughter to bed hours ago. The cottage stood silent, save for the gentle ticking of my grandmother's antique clock in the hallway, a family heirloom she'd pressed into my hands before she died. "Time is precious, Eliza," she'd told me, her voice paper-thin, but her eyes still sharp as winter stars. "It slips away when we're not looking. This clock will remind you to spend it on what matters." Now, its steady rhythm counted the precious moments of peace before tomorrow's challenges would begin again. I moved through the darkened living room, sidestepping Lucy's scattered toys, evidence of a happy child in a home where happiness sometimes felt like a luxury we couldn't quite afford. Single motherhood wasn't the life I'd planned, but after David left when Lucy was barely a year old, claiming he wasn't cut out for fatherhood, I'd learned to carry both our worlds on my shoulders. The hospital bills from Lucy's asthma treatments last winter had nearly drowned us, but somehow we kept our heads above water, barely. The kitchen light flickered as I switched it on, illuminating the stack of unpaid bills on the counter. I winced and turned away, reaching instead for the cheap bottle of red wine I'd been saving for a particularly difficult day. Today, qualified. Mr. Blackwell, the wealthiest patient I'd ever treated, had made my shift a living hell with his demands and complaints, despite the fact that his injuries, 3 deep gashes across his torso that had required 47 stitches, should have left him too weak to terrorize the nursing staff. There had been something strange about those wounds. They were too clean to be from a car accident, as he'd claimed, too precise. They looked almost like claw marks, and his recovery rate was nothing short of miraculous. Wounds that should have left him bedridden for weeks seemed to be healing before my eyes. I poured the wine into a chipped mug. All the proper glasses had been casualties of last month's power outage when I'd stumbled around in the dark and carried it to the bathroom. The mirror reflected a woman I sometimes struggled to recognize, blonde hair pulled back in a messy bun, strands escaping to frame a face too pale, and eyes too old for someone only 28. Dark circles shadowed my blue eyes, testament to too many double shifts and sleepless nights worrying about rent. The hot water of the shower pounded against my skin, washing away the hospital smells but not the memory of Mr. Blackwell's penetrating gaze. There had been something inhuman in those amber eyes, something that made my spine tingle with a primal recognition of danger. Yet when I'd cleaned and stitched his wounds, his hand had caught mine for just a moment, and I could have sworn I felt him tremble. Not from pain, but from something else. Something that looked almost like vulnerability in a man who radiated power even from a hospital bed. "You have gentle hands," he'd said, his voice a low rumble that seemed to resonate in my chest. "Most people fear touching me." I'd said nothing, focusing on the task at hand, ignoring the way the other nurses whispered about him, about how no one in town knew much about the reclusive owner of the vast estate that bordered the northern woods. The locals called those woods the Shadow Pines, and mothers warned their children not to wander too close after dark. Stories of wolf packs and strange howls had circulated for generations, though I dismissed them as small-town superstition. Clean and exhausted, I slipped into my threadbare robe and padded down the hall to check on Lucy. She slept peacefully, her blonde curls, so like mine, splayed across the pillow, her small chest rising and falling in the gentle rhythm of childhood dreams. Her inhaler sat on the bedside table, a reminder of the fragility that kept me awake on cold nights when her breathing sounded too labored. I brushed a kiss against her forehead, inhaling the sweet scent of baby shampoo and innocence. "We'll be okay," I whispered, more to convince myself than her sleeping form. Back in the kitchen, I noticed something I'd missed before, a thick envelope on the table, my name written across it in elegant script. Mrs. Peterson must have left it, though I couldn't imagine who would send me anything so formal. Inside was a check, that made my hands shake, and a brief note. For your exceptional care, the extra is for your discretion regarding the nature of my injuries. Alexander Blackwell. The amount was more than 3 months' salary. I sat down hard, wine sloshing over the rim of my mug. This would cover Lucy's medical bills, with enough left over to finally fix the leaking roof, and maybe even start a small college fund. Relief ward with suspicion. No one gave away money like this without expecting something in return. What exactly was I being paid to keep quiet about? Sleep eluded me that night, my mind racing with questions about Alexander Blackwell and his mysterious injuries. The wind picked up around midnight, howling around the eaves of the cottage like a living thing. Something about its mournful cry reminded me of the stories about the shadow pines, and I pulled the covers tighter around my shoulders. Just as I was finally drifting off, a sharp sound jerked me awake, something scratching at the back door. My heart hammered against my ribs as I slipped out of bed, grabbing the baseball bat I kept beside my dresser. The scratching came again, more insistent this time, followed by a low whine that sounded almost canine. Just a stray dog, I whispered to myself, but my hand trembled on the doorknob. When I opened the door, the porch light illuminated not a stray, but the largest wolf I had ever seen. Its fur was jet black, its eyes the same startling amber as Alexander Blackwell's. Blood matted the fur along its side, and as it looked up at me, I saw not aggression but a desperate plea in those intelligent eyes. I should have slammed the door. I should have called animal control. Instead, I found myself kneeling beside the massive creature, my nurse's instincts overriding fear. "You're hurt," I murmured, reaching out slowly. The wolf watched me, its body tense but unmoving. As my fingers touched its fur, a shudder ran through its powerful frame. The wound was fresh, a bullet hole. Someone had shot this magnificent animal and left it to die. Anger surged through me, hot and fierce. "Let me help you," I said softly. And to my astonishment, the wolf limped inside when I stepped back, leaving bloody paw prints on my kitchen floor. What happened next defies all rational explanation. As I gathered first aid supplies, a strange glow filled the kitchen. When I turned back, the wolf was gone. In its place, naked and bleeding from a wound in his side, was Alexander Blackwell. I dropped the gauze, my mouth open in a silent scream. He raised a hand, his amber eyes pleading. "Please," he rasped. I had nowhere else to go. The world tilted sideways, reality unspooling like a loose thread. This couldn't be happening. Men didn't turn into wolves. Wolves didn't turn into men. Yet the evidence stood before me, as impossible as it was undeniable. I couldn't finish the sentence. "Yes." His voice was strained with pain. "And now you know why I needed discretion about my injuries." My grandmother's clock ticked in the hallway, counting the seconds of this new, impossible reality. I should have been terrified. Instead, a strange calm settled over me, the same focused clarity that guided me through emergencies in the hospital. "Sit down before you fall down," I said, gesturing to a kitchen chair. "And for God's sake, take this." I tossed him a dish towel to cover himself. As I cleaned and dressed his wound, a bullet had grazed his side, serious for a human, but apparently less so for whatever he was. Questions tumbled through my mind, yet I asked none of them, focusing instead on the task at hand, just as I had in the hospital. His skin was fever hot beneath my fingers, his muscles tensing each time I touched him. "Why did you come to me?" I finally asked, securing the last piece of tape over the gauze. His amber eyes held mine, something ancient and wild swimming in their depths. "Your hands," he said simply. "They don't shake when you touch me, even knowing what I am. And what exactly are you, Mr. Blackwell?" A smile touched his lips, transforming his severe features into something almost boyish. "Alexander, please, and I think you've already guessed. Werewolf sounds ridiculous out loud. We prefer the term shifter." He winced as he straightened. "And I'm not just any shifter. I'm the Alpha King of the Northern Territories, which makes the attempt on my life tonight an act of war." The casual way he spoke of territories and war sent a chill down my spine. "War? With whom?" "The Southern Pack has been encroaching on our lands for months. Tonight's attack confirms what we suspected. They're making their move for control. I shook my head, struggling to process this hidden world that had suddenly crashed into mine. And what does any of this have to do with me and my daughter? His expression darkened. By helping me, twice now, you've inadvertently aligned yourself with the Northern Pack. In the eyes of my enemies, that makes you... He hesitated. Makes me what? A target. The word hung in the air between us, heavy with implication. My thoughts flew to Lucy, sleeping peacefully down the hall, unaware that her mother had just entangled them in a supernatural war. You need to leave, I said, my voice tight with sudden fear. Now! Alexander rose, towering over me. Even wounded, he radiated power and authority. It's too late for that, Eliza. They'll have tracked me here. My scent is all over your home now. Then what do we do? Panic clawed at my throat. My pack is coming. They'll form a protective perimeter around your house until I can move you and your daughter to safety. Move us? I can't just leave. I have a job. Lucy has school. If you stay, you'll die. His bluntness silenced me. Both of you. A child's sleepy voice called from the hallway. Mommy? Who are you talking to? Lucy stood in the doorway, rubbing her eyes, her favorite stuffed rabbit clutched to her chest. Her gaze moved from me to the half-naked stranger in our kitchen, confusion clouding her face. Before I could respond, the sound of howling split the night air. Not one wolf, but many, their voices rising in a chilling chorus that made the hair on my arms stand on end. Alexander moved to the window, his body tense. They're here, he said, both packs. I gathered Lucy into my arms, my heart pounding so hard I was sure she could feel it. Both? He turned to me, his amber eyes glowing in the dim light. My wolves have come to protect what their king values. The Southern Pack has come to destroy it. The howling grew louder, surrounding the cottage like a closing fist. I peered out the window and felt my blood freeze. In the silver moonlight, pairs of glowing eyes, dozens of them, stared back from the tree line. Some shifted restlessly, moving forward only to be driven back by massive wolves with raised hackles guarding our perimeter. Lucy trembled in my arms. Mommy, there are monsters outside. Alexander knelt before us, his gaze gentle as it met my daughter's. Not monsters, little one. Guardians. They're here to keep you safe. Like angels, she asked, her fear giving way to curiosity. A smile touched his lips, something like that. The sound of splintering wood came from the back of the house. Someone or something was breaking in. Alexander's expression hardened, his body tensing as he positioned himself between us and the hallway. Stay behind me, he ordered, his voice deepening to a growl. No matter what happens, no matter what you see, stay behind me. His body began to shimmer, that same strange glow I'd seen earlier enveloping him. I clutched Lucy tighter and backed against the wall as Alexander Blackwell, the Alpha King of the Northern Territories, prepared to defend us against an enemy I hadn't known existed until tonight. Through the window, I could see more wolves emerging from the trees, their eyes fixed on our little cottage. By morning, 100 wolves would surround my house, half to protect us, half to tear us apart, and I had no idea which side would win. The transformation happened in an instant. One moment Alexander stood before us, human despite his inhuman eyes. The next, the massive black wolf from earlier crouched in his place, hackles raised and teeth bared in a silent snarl. Lucy gasped, her small body going rigid in my arms. But she didn't scream. Instead, she whispered with childlike wonder, "He's magic, Mommy." I had no time to process the impossibility unfolding in my kitchen. A crash echoed from the living room as the window shattered, followed by the heavy thud of something large landing on the hardwood floor. Alexander, the wolf, shot forward with frightening speed, disappearing into the darkness of the hallway. The sounds that followed would haunt my nightmares for months to come. Growls that no natural wolf could produce, the splintering of furniture, and beneath it all, a terrible wet tearing that I recognized from my years in the ER. The sound of flesh giving way. "Close your eyes, baby," I whispered, pressing Lucy's face against my shoulder as I backed us into the corner of the kitchen, my hand fumbling behind me for a weapon. My fingers closed around the handle of a cast-iron skillet, a poor defense against supernatural predators, but better than nothing. The fight moved through the cottage like a violent storm, destroying everything in its path. Glass broke, pictures fell from walls, and beneath the cacophony of destruction, I heard Alexander's pained yelp. Fear clutched at my heart, not for myself, but for him. This powerful being was injured, fighting to protect us, and losing. "We have to help him," Lucy said suddenly, squirming in my grasp. "We can't, baby. We need to stay here where it's safe." Her blue eyes, so like my own, fixed on me with that stubborn determination she'd inherited from me. "Grandma's clock says we should spend time on what matters. He matters, Mommy. He's protecting us." My grandmother's words from her deathbed, remembered and repeated by a 5-year-old who had never met her. The wisdom cut through my fear, igniting something fierce and protective in my chest. Lucy was right. We couldn't hide while someone fought our battle for us. That wasn't the example I wanted to set for my daughter. "Stay behind the table," I instructed, setting her down and positioning her in the corner furthest from the door. "Don't come out no matter what happens." I gripped the skillet tighter and moved toward the sounds of struggle, my heart hammering against my ribs. The living room was a disaster zone of broken furniture and shattered glass. In the center of the destruction, Alexander's black wolf form was locked in combat with another wolf. This one leaner, with mottled gray fur and a viciousness in its movements that spoke of something more than animal instinct. Both were bloodied, but Alexander was clearly weakening, his earlier wound reopened and fresh gashes visible across his flank. Without thinking, I swung the skillet with all my strength, connecting with the gray wolf's skull. The impact reverberated up my arm, nearly causing me to drop my makeshift weapon. The wolf yelped and staggered, giving Alexander the opening he needed. His massive jaws closed around the intruder's throat in a killing bite. I turned away, but couldn't block out the sound. When I looked back, the gray wolf lay motionless, and Alexander stood panting, blood matting his black fur. Our eyes met, and I saw something shift in those amber depths. Surprise, respect, and something else I couldn't name. The moment shattered as more growls erupted from outside. Through the broken window, I could see shapes moving in the darkness, more wolves approaching the house. "We need to leave," I said, not knowing if Alexander could understand me in this form. But he nodded, an eerily human gesture from the massive wolf, and limped toward the kitchen where Lucy waited. My daughter showed no fear as the bloodied wolf approached. Instead, she reached out a small hand to touch his muzzle. "You're hurt again," she said softly. The air shimmered, and Alexander stood before us once more, human and naked and bleeding. I averted my eyes, grabbing a tablecloth to hand to him. "There's no time for modesty," he said, wrapping the cloth around his waist. "More are coming. My pack is holding them back, but they're outnumbered." He swayed slightly, and I moved instinctively to support him. "You need medical attention," I said, my nurse's training taking over. "What I need is to get you both to safety." His eyes met mine, intense and urgent. "Do you trust me, Eliza? Did I?" This man, this creature, had upended my reality in the space of a night. Yet he'd also fought to protect my daughter when he could have fled. My grandmother had always said trust was earned in actions, not words. Alexander's actions spoke volumes. "Yes," I said simply. He nodded, seeming to gather strength from my answer. "There's a tunnel beneath your house, part of an old moonshine smuggling network from Prohibition. My pack used these woods long before humans built here, and we've maintained the tunnels for emergencies." "A tunnel under my house? How would you know that?" A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "I own this land, Eliza. All of it, including the cottage you rent." The revelation shouldn't have surprised me. Blackwell Estate encompassed most of the northern county, but it sent a ripple of unease through me. How much of our meeting had been chance, and how much by design? "The entrance is in your root cellar," he continued. "It will lead us to a safe house 2 miles east. My beta Marcus will meet us there with reinforcements." Lucy tugged at my sleeve, like a secret passage in my storybooks. Alexander knelt to her level, his expression softening. Exactly like that, brave one. Outside, the howling intensified, punctuated by snarls and yelps that told of battle. Alexander tensed, listening. We need to move, now. I grabbed Lucy's inhaler and my grandmother's clock, the only two things I couldn't bear to leave behind, and followed Alexander to the small door beside the pantry that led to the root cellar. I'd avoided the musty space since moving in, using it only for holiday decorations and rarely used kitchenware. Alexander pushed aside a stack of boxes, revealing a trap door set into the earthen floor. It hasn't been used in decades, he warned, lifting the heavy wooden door with a grunt of pain. Stay close and watch your step. The tunnel beyond was low-ceilinged and damp, the air thick with the smell of wet earth and thyme. Alexander produced a small flashlight from a hidden niche near the entrance, its beam cutting weakly through the oppressive darkness. What about your injuries? I whispered, as we moved deeper into the tunnel, the sounds of fighting fading behind us. They'll heal, he said tersely. Faster than human wounds, but not fast enough. Blood still seeped from the gashes on his torso, leaving a trail that made my stomach clench with worry. And the one you killed? His shoulders stiffened. An assassin from the Southern Pack. The first of many, I fear. Lucy walked between us, one small hand in mine, the other clutching her rabbit. The trust in her eyes as she looked up at Alexander made my throat tight. Children see the truth of people in ways adults have forgotten, my grandmother used to say. Lucy saw something in this dangerous man that warranted her trust, despite the violence we'd witnessed. Why are they after you? I asked, keeping my voice low. Alexander was silent for so long I thought he might not answer. Finally he spoke, his words echoing softly in the narrow passage. My father died 3 months ago. As his heir, I inherited leadership of the Northern Territories, the largest shifter domain in North America. The Southern Pack has always resented our power, and they see my new leadership as an opportunity for conquest. So this is a power grab? Partly. He paused, helping Lucy over a particularly uneven section of ground. But there's more. I've been pushing for changes, an end to the old ways of isolation, more integration with human society. Many traditionalists oppose this, including some in my own pack. You want to reveal yourselves to the world? The idea seemed both terrifying and strangely hopeful. Not entirely, but the days of hiding in shadows are coming to an end, whether we choose it or not. Technology makes it harder to remain hidden. I believe controlled revelation to select humans is inevitable. Medical professionals, law enforcement, government officials, building alliances rather than living in fear. The weight of what he was saying sank in slowly. And I'm what? A test case? He stopped, turning to face me fully, his amber eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. You were never meant to discover what I am. Not yet. The attack at the hospital was unexpected. I was investigating rumors of Southern Pack infiltrators in town. They ambushed me, and the nearest safe place was your hospital. But you came back tonight, to my house. They tracked me by my scent on the hospital paperwork, found your address. I came to warn you, but they'd already sent an assassin. I was too late. Regret shadowed his features. I've dragged you into a war you never asked for, and for that, I am truly sorry. The raw honesty in his voice caught me off guard. This powerful being, this Alpha King, was apologizing to me, a struggling single mother he barely knew. You saved our lives, I reminded him. Twice now. And endangered them first, he sighed, a weary sound that seemed to carry the weight of his responsibilities. I will get you somewhere safe, somewhere far from this conflict. You have my word. And then what? We just start over somewhere new, again? The bitterness in my voice surprised even me. After David left, I'd moved us 3 times before finding Pinewood, each time rebuilding our lives from scratch. The thought of doing it again, of Lucy changing schools, of finding new work, of being alone in yet another strange place, it felt like more than I could bear. Alexander's expression softened. I didn't say that was your only option, just that it's available if you want it. And the alternative? Stay. Under my protection. Help me build bridges between our worlds. The offer hung between us, fraught with implications I couldn't begin to untangle. Before I could respond, Lucy's small voice broke the tension. "I'm tired, Mommy." I looked down to see my daughter swaying on her feet, the excitement and fear of the night finally catching up to her. Without hesitation, Alexander scooped her up with his uninjured arm, wincing slightly but holding her securely. "We're almost there, little warrior," he told her, his deep voice gentler than I'd heard it before. "Just a little further." Lucy settled against his chest with the easy trust of childhood, her eyes already drooping. The sight of my daughter in the arms of this dangerous, wounded man stirred something profound in my chest. A confusion of fear, gratitude, and something warmer I wasn't ready to name. We continued in silence, the tunnel gradually sloping upward. After what felt like hours, but was likely only 20 minutes, we reached another wooden door set into the ceiling. Alexander shifted Lucy to me before pushing it open, revealing a starlit sky. "We're outside the perimeter," he explained, lifting us one by one through the opening. "The safe house is just beyond those trees." We emerged into a small clearing surrounded by dense pine forest. The night air was sharp with the scent of coming frost, and I shivered in my thin pajamas. Without comment, Alexander removed the tablecloth from his waist and draped it around my shoulders, leaving himself completely exposed to the elements and my gaze. I kept my eyes carefully on his face, but not before registering the powerful build of a man who spent more time in his wolf form than most. The safe house turned out to be a rustic cabin nestled among the pines, its windows dark but welcoming. As we approached, the door opened to reveal a tall man with sharp features and watchful eyes. "My king," he said, bowing his head slightly. "We feared the worst." "Save the formalities, Marcus," Alexander replied. "We need medical supplies, food, and clothing." Marcus's gaze moved to me and Lucy, his expression unreadable. "The human woman and her pup. They're why you went back. They're under my protection now." There was steel in Alexander's voice, a command rather than a statement. "Treat them accordingly." The interior of the cabin was surprisingly comfortable, clean and well-furnished, with a fire already blazing in the stone hearth. Marcus disappeared into a back room, returning with medical supplies and clothing for all of us. "The perimeter is secure," he reported as I tended to Alexander's wounds. 30 of our warriors are patrolling, but the southern pack has retreated for now. They lost 7 tonight, including their lead assassin. "And our losses?" Alexander asked, his jaw tight. Marcus's expression darkened. 3 dead, 5 more injured, 2 critically. The news hit Alexander visibly, his shoulders sagging under the weight of responsibility. "Their names?" "Liam, Sophia, and young Caleb." A muscle worked in Alexander's jaw. Caleb was barely 20. His first moon was just last year. He closed his eyes briefly. "Their sacrifices will not be forgotten. See that their families are cared for." I finished bandaging his wounds in silence, moved by the genuine grief I saw in his face. This was not a tyrant who sent his followers to die without care, but a leader who felt each loss personally. With Lucy settled on a small cot in the corner, sleeping soundly despite the night's horrors, I finally allowed exhaustion to overtake me. I sank onto the couch, the events of the past hours crashing over me in waves. "You should rest," Alexander said, his voice gentle. "You're safe here for now." "For now," I repeated. "But this isn't over, is it?" He sat beside me, careful to maintain a respectful distance. "No, the southern pack will regroup, and now they know my weakness." "What weakness?" His amber eyes met mine, intense and unguarded. "You, Eliza. You and your daughter. They've seen that I value human lives, your lives specifically. In their eyes, that makes me unfit to lead. Because you showed compassion, because I risked everything to protect you." He leaned forward, his gaze holding mine. "Do you know what they call you in the whispers already spreading through the packs? The woman who healed the king. There are ancient prophecies about humans who bridge our worlds, who bring change and chaos in equal measure. Some welcome such change. Others fear it enough to kill for it." A chill ran through me that had nothing to do with the night air. "I'm just a nurse who did her job. Nothing more. Are you?" He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away, and brushed a strand of blonde hair from my face. You faced a shifter assassin with nothing but a kitchen skillet. You trusted a wounded wolf enough to bring him into your home, not once, but twice. There's something rare in you, Eliza, a courage that has nothing to do with physical strength. His touch lingered on my cheek, fever-warm and surprisingly gentle for hands that could transform into lethal claws. Something electric passed between us, a recognition that transcended the strangeness of our circumstances. The moment shattered as the cabin door burst open. A young shifter stumbled in, blood streaming from a gash across his forehead. "They're coming back," he gasped. "All of them. The Southern Alpha himself is leading them." Marcus was on his feet instantly. "How many?" "At least 100. Maybe more." The young shifter's eyes were wide with fear. "They say they won't leave without the human woman and her child." Alexander rose, his expression hardening into something ancient and terrible. "Then they won't leave at all." He turned to me, and in his eyes I saw not just the man, but the wolf, the predator, the protector, the king. "Stay here with Lucy. No matter what you hear, no matter what happens, do not leave this cabin." "You can't fight them all," I protested, rising to stand before him. "You're injured, outnumbered. This is my territory," he said simply. "My people. My responsibility." He paused, something vulnerable flickering across his face. "And now, you and Lucy are my responsibility too." Before I could respond, a howl split the night, different from the others, deeper and more commanding. The sound raised the hair on my arms and sent a primal shiver down my spine. "The Southern Alpha," Marcus said grimly. "He's calling you out directly." Alexander moved to the door, his body already beginning to shimmer with the change. He looked back at me one last time, his amber eyes burning with fierce determination. "I will come back for you, Eliza," he promised, "both of you." Then he was gone, the door closing behind him with a finality that felt like a physical blow. I moved to the window, watching as he strode into the clearing, his body glowing, shifting, transforming into the massive black wolf I was beginning to recognize. Around him, other wolves emerged from the trees, his pack gathering to their king. From the opposite tree line, more wolves appeared, lean, hungry shapes with eyes that gleamed with malice even from a distance. At their center prowled a wolf larger than any except Alexander, its fur silver in the moonlight. The two packs faced each other across the clearing, the air between them charged with ancient hatred and new bloodlust. Alexander and the silver wolf stepped forward, circling each other with teeth bared. The fight for dominance was about to begin, and I knew with sickening certainty that only one alpha would walk away. I gripped the windowsill, my heart pounding so hard I could barely breathe. In the space of a single night, my ordinary life had shattered, replaced by a reality where monsters were real, and the line between human and animal blurred. And somehow, impossibly, I found myself praying for the safety of a wolf who had become, in the chaos of violence and revelation, something I wasn't ready to name but couldn't bear to lose. Block 3, the battle that unfolded in the moonlit clearing, defied everything I thought I knew about the natural world. Alexander and the silver wolf, the Southern Alpha, moved with a speed and ferocity that blurred the line between combat and dance, their massive bodies colliding with forces that should have shattered bone. Around them, the two packs mirrored their leaders, locked in dozens of individual struggles that transformed the peaceful forest into a theater of primal violence. I couldn't tear my eyes away, even as I covered Lucy's cot with a blanket, to ensure she wouldn't wake and witness the brutality outside. These weren't animals fighting, not entirely. There was strategy in their movements, coordinated attacks that spoke of intelligence directing the savagery. Alexander fought with the skill of someone who had spent decades honing his abilities, each movement precise despite his injuries. But the Southern Alpha was equally matched, and fresh, where Alexander was wounded. As the battle wore on, I could see Alexander tiring, his reactions slowing fractionally. A vicious bite to his already injured side sent him staggering, and the silver wolf pressed his advantage, going for the killing strike at Alexander's throat. At the last moment, Alexander twisted away, but not quickly enough to avoid a deep gash across his shoulder. He stumbled, and for one heart-stopping moment, I thought he would fall. The silver wolf circled, preparing for a final attack. Without conscious thought, I found myself at the cabin door, Marcus's restraining hand on my arm. "You cannot interfere," he said, his voice low but firm. "This is a battle of alphas. If anyone aids either combatant, it will invalidate the challenge and result in all-out war." "He's going to die," I whispered, my voice breaking. Marcus's grip tightened. "He is stronger than you know. Have faith in your king. Your king." The words echoed strangely in my mind. Alexander wasn't my king. I was human, not part of this hidden world of packs and territories. Yet in the space of one night, my fate and Lucy's had become inextricably bound to his. Outside, the silver wolf lunged again, but this time Alexander was ready. In a move too fast for my eyes to track, he twisted beneath the larger wolf's attack and caught him mid-leap, using the Southern Alpha's momentum to slam him to the ground. Before his opponent could recover, Alexander's jaws closed around the silver wolf's throat, not in a killing bite, but in the unmistakable hold of dominance. For several tense seconds, the two wolves remained frozen in this tableau of power. Then, slowly, the silver wolf went limp, a whine of submission escaping his throat. Alexander held the position a moment longer before releasing him and stepping back, his posture regal despite his bleeding wounds. A ripple moved through both packs as the silver wolf rose, shook himself, and then, to my astonishment, lowered his head in submission before Alexander. One by one, the southern wolves followed suit, creating a circle of bowed heads around the victorious northern alpha. "It's over," Marcus breathed, relief evident in his voice. "He's won their submission without killing their alpha. Now they must honor the terms of challenge." "What terms?" "The northern territories remain under King Alexander's rule. The southern pack must withdraw and may not challenge again for 7 years. And," he glanced at me, "his protection of you and your daughter cannot be contested." The wolves were dispersing now, the southern pack slinking back into the forest, while Alexander's followers moved to surround him, some shifting back to human form to help their injured comrades. Alexander himself remained in wolf form, his amber eyes fixed on the cabin where I stood watching. Even from this distance, I could feel the weight of his gaze. "He needs medical attention," I said, already gathering supplies. "Those wounds are serious, even for whatever he is." "Shifter," Marcus corrected gently. "And yes, they are. Though we heal faster than humans, an alpha's injuries from another alpha take longer to mend." He paused, studying me with new respect. "He will allow you to tend him. That's unprecedented." "Why?" "Our kind doesn't easily trust humans with our vulnerability. For our king to accept your care not once, but 3 times now, it marks you as something special to our pack." I wanted to protest that I was nothing special, just a nurse doing what I was trained to do, but the words died in my throat as Alexander limped into the cabin, his massive wolf form barely fitting through the doorway. Blood matted his black fur, but his eyes were clear and alert as they found mine. The air shimmered around him, and once again, the wolf gave way to the man. This time, I didn't look away. His body was a roadmap of tonight's battles, fresh wounds layered over the barely healed injuries from the hospital, each one a testament to what he'd endured to protect us. Despite this, he stood tall, his presence filling the small cabin with an authority that had nothing to do with his nakedness, and everything to do with the power that radiated from him like heat from a flame. Marcus draped a blanket around his king's shoulders before slipping outside to coordinate the pack, leaving us alone save for Lucy's sleeping form in the corner. "You won," I said quietly, gesturing for him to sit on a wooden chair where I could tend his wounds, for now. He winced as he sat, his voice rough with exertion. "The Southern Alpha will honor the challenge. But this isn't the end, just a reprieve." I worked in silence for a while, cleaning gashes that would have killed a human man. His skin was unnaturally hot beneath my fingers, his muscles tensing with each touch, despite his obvious efforts to remain still. "Does it hurt when I touch you?" I asked, pausing with my hand hovering over a particularly deep wound. "Yes," he admitted, "but not from pain." Our eyes met, and the naked vulnerability in his gaze caught me off guard. This wasn't just the Alpha King or the dangerous shifter who had upended my life. This was a man, carrying burdens I couldn't begin to comprehend, and wounds that went deeper than flesh. The stories never mention this part, I said, resuming my work with gentle hands. What part? Where the monster bleeds and the princess has to stitch him up. The attempt at humor fell flat, but his lips curved in a small smile. Is that what I am to you? A monster? I considered the question seriously, as I applied antiseptic to a gash across his ribs. I don't know what you are, but I know what you've done. Fought to protect my daughter when you could have left us to die. In my book, that makes you one of the good guys. Fangs and all. His smile widened, transforming his severe features. And are you the princess in this scenario? Hardly. I gestured to my disheveled appearance, still in my rumpled pajamas with my blonde hair tangled from our flight through the tunnel. More like the exhausted single mom who keeps getting pulled into fairy tales against her better judgment. Some would say fairy tales are just truths we've forgotten. He caught my hand as I finished bandaging his shoulder, his touch gentle but insistent. Thank you, Eliza, for your courage tonight, for your care, for not running when any sane human would have. The warmth of his skin against mine sent a current through my body that had nothing to do with fear. I pulled my hand away, suddenly aware of how close we were sitting, of the intensity in his amber eyes. You should rest, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Even supernatural healing needs time, I'm guessing. He nodded, but made no move to leave the chair. Your daughter. She slept through it all? I glanced at Lucy's cot, where only her blonde curls were visible above the blanket. She's always been a heavy sleeper. One small mercy tonight. She's extraordinary, he said softly, like her mother. Most children would have been terrified by what she witnessed, yet she saw past the wolf to the protector. Children accept the impossible more easily than adults. We haven't yet taught them what's real and what isn't. And now? Has tonight taught you to question what's real? I laughed softly, the sound edged with hysteria I'd been suppressing since a wolf turned into a man in my kitchen. Let's just say my definition of possible has expanded considerably. It will be dawn soon, he said, glancing toward the window where the sky was lightening almost imperceptibly. You should sleep while you can. Tomorrow we'll need to make decisions. About? Your future. Lucy's future. He hesitated. Whether that future intersects with mine. The weight of what he was saying, and what he wasn't saying, hung between us. I was too exhausted, too overwhelmed to untangle the implications tonight. One apocalypse at a time, I murmured, moving to check on Lucy one last time before finding my own place to rest. Alexander watched me with those unnervingly perceptive eyes. The guest room is through that door. You'll be more comfortable there. The thought of a real bed was tempting, but I shook my head. I need to stay where I can see Lucy. I settled onto the couch, pulling a throw blanket over my legs. What about you? Where will you sleep? A shadow of something, amusement, tenderness, crossed his face. My kind requires less rest than humans. I'll keep watch. Despite my exhaustion, sleep eluded me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw wolves circling our cottage, heard the terrible sounds of their fighting. Alexander sat in the chair across from me, his posture alert despite his injuries, his gaze alternating between the windows and my face. Ask, he said after a while, his voice low enough not to disturb Lucy. Whatever questions are keeping you awake. There were so many, I hardly knew where to begin. How many of you are there? Shifters? Thousands, scattered across the world in different territories. The Northern Pack alone has over 300 members. And you're all wolves? He shook his head. Wolf shifters are the most common in North America, but there are other types, big cats, bears, even birds of prey in some regions. Each has its own culture, its own hierarchy. And you're their king? All of them? No, just the Northern Territories, the largest wolf shifter domain on the continent. It spans from the Canadian border down through this state and west to the mountains. I tried to process the scale of what he was describing, an entire hidden society existing alongside our human world. How have you remained secret all this time? Carefully, he said with a wry smile. We live among humans but maintain our own communities in less populated areas. Most shifters can pass as human when needed. Jobs, education, even relationships, but our true lives, our pack bonds, remain hidden. Until now. His expression grew serious. The old ways are failing us, Eliza. Each year it becomes harder to maintain the secrecy. Surveillance cameras, DNA testing, social media. The modern world leaves less room for shadows. Some of us believe controlled revelation is inevitable. Others would rather die than expose our existence. And that's what tonight was about, this war. Partly. He shifted, wincing as the movement pulled at his wounds. The Southern Pack follows the old ways strictly. Isolation, aggression toward humans who discover our secret, absolute loyalty to tradition. My father ruled similarly for 50 years. When I inherited leadership, I began pushing for gradual integration, starting with trusted humans in key positions. Like nurses in small-town hospitals? His smile returned briefly, not intentionally, but yes, people like you. Those who might bridge our worlds if given the chance. And the Southern Pack would rather kill me and Lucy than let that happen. They see you as symbols of a change they fear. His voice hardened. But they will not touch you. I've claimed you under my protection. And tonight's victory reinforces that claim. The possessive edge to his words should have alarmed me. Instead, I felt a strange sense of security. This powerful being had placed himself between danger and my daughter, had bled for our safety. There were worse allies to have in a world suddenly filled with monsters. What happens when we leave this cabin? I asked, the practical concerns of our situation reasserting themselves. Our home is destroyed. Lucy's school, my job. All can be restored, he said simply. My resources are considerable. Your home will be rebuilt, better than before. Your position at the hospital is secure. I own that too. You own the hospital? I sat up straighter, pieces clicking into place. Blackwell Medical Center, of course. Among other things, my family has accumulated wealth over generations. It facilitates our ability to move in human society while maintaining our independence. So you're not just a wolf king, you're a corporate one too. He laughed, the sound rich and unexpected. Something like that. Though I prefer the pack to the boardroom, wolves are more straightforward in their ambitions. A comfortable silence fell between us, broken only by the soft pop of embers in the fireplace and Lucy's steady breathing. Dawn was coming, pale light seeping through the windows. What will you tell her? Alexander asked eventually, nodding toward my sleeping daughter. About tonight? I'd been wondering the same thing. How do you explain to a 5-year-old that the monsters in her storybooks are real, but not all monsters are villains? The truth, I decided. Or some version of it. She already saw you change. Trying to convince her it was a dream would only confuse her. She's lucky to have a mother who respects her enough for honesty. The simple observation touched me more deeply than I expected. After David left, I'd struggled not just with single parenthood, but with the constant second-guessing. Was I doing enough? Giving enough? Being enough for this small person who depended entirely on me? I'm not always sure I'm doing the right thing, I admitted. Especially now, when the right thing isn't exactly covered in parenting books. Chapter 10. When your daughter's new friend turns into a wolf, he suggested with mock seriousness. I laughed despite myself, the tension of the night finally breaking. Exactly. Somewhere between potty training and college applications, his answering smile faded as he leaned forward, his expression growing serious again. Eliza, there's something I need to tell you. About why the Southern Pack might have targeted me specifically, beyond the territorial dispute. The change in his tone sent a chill through me. What is it? Shifter society has prophecies. Old stories passed down through generations. One speaks of an alpha who would bridge the gap between humans and shifters, bringing a new era of coexistence. This alpha would be known by 3 signs. He would survive a mortal wound with the help of a human healer. He would spare his greatest enemy in battle. And he would... He stopped abruptly. Would what? Alexander's gaze was intense, almost burning. He would take a human mate, a woman with healing hands and a heart strong enough to stand between worlds. The implication hung in the air between us, heavy with possibility. And you think that's me? I think prophecies are often self-fulfilling, he said carefully. But I also think there has been something between us from the moment you stitched my wounds without flinching. Something neither of us expected. My heart raced, and I found myself unable to look away from his amber eyes. I barely know you. You know the most important parts, he countered. You've seen me at my most vulnerable and my most dangerous. You know what I am willing to fight for, to die for. Can most humans say they know even that much about the people they love? Love. The word fell between us like a stone in still water, ripples expanding outward. It was too soon, too impossible, too everything. And yet I couldn't deny the pull I felt toward this man who was not entirely a man, this king of a world I hadn't known existed until tonight. I have a daughter to think about, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I know. And she would be as protected as you, as cherished. My pack would become her pack, dozens of defenders, teachers, friends. His expression softened. I've seen how you struggle, Eliza. How hard you work to give her everything on your own. You wouldn't have to do it alone anymore. The promise in those words, not just safety but belonging, not just protection but partnership, touched a loneliness in me I'd tried to ignore since David walked out. Still, caution held me back. This is a lot. To process, I mean. Of course. He nodded, respect in his eyes. I don't expect an answer now, or even soon. I only wanted you to understand why the Southern Pack sees you as so significant, and why I do too, though for very different reasons. Before I could respond, a soft sound from the corner drew our attention. Lucy was sitting up, rubbing her eyes sleepily. Mommy? Is it morning? I moved to her side, smoothing her tangled blonde curls. Almost, baby. Did you sleep okay? She nodded. Then her gaze moved past me to Alexander. Her eyes widened as memory returned. You're the wolf man, she said with the direct simplicity of childhood, the one who saved us from the bad wolves. Alexander smiled, the expression transforming his severe features into something gentle. That's right. My name is Alexander. Are you still hurt? She asked, eyeing the bandages visible above the blanket around his shoulders. A little. But your mother has very healing hands. Lucy beamed at me proudly. Mommy fixes everybody. That's her special power. A very important power, Alexander agreed, his eyes meeting mine over her head. Lucy climbed onto my lap, her small body warm and solid, the center of my universe since the moment she was born. Are the bad wolves gone now? For now, I told her honestly. Alexander made them go away. She considered this, her young face serious. But they might come back? They might, Alexander answered, matching her directness. But I promise they won't hurt you or your mother. My pack, my family, will make sure of it. Because you're the king wolf, she stated with certainty. He looked startled, then laughed. Yes, I suppose I am. In my storybook, the king always protects the kingdom, she informed him solemnly, and the queen helps him. I felt heat rise to my cheeks at her innocent observation. Lucy? It's true, she insisted. Kings need queens to help them do the right thing. That's what Mrs. Peterson says when we read fairy tales. Alexander's expression was carefully neutral, but I caught the gleam of amusement in his eyes. Mrs. Peterson sounds very wise. A knock at the door interrupted the increasingly awkward conversation. Marcus entered, his face grim despite the victory hours earlier. My king, we've received reports from the scouts. The Southern Pack has withdrawn beyond the territory borders as agreed, but they've left something behind. He hesitated, glancing at Lucy. Something you should see. Alexander rose, the blanket secured around his waist. Stay here, he told us. I'll return shortly. After he'd gone, Lucy turned to me with wide, serious eyes. Is he going to be our friend now, Mommy? Friend seemed an inadequate word for the man who had bled to protect us, who had spoken of prophecies and mates and pack bonds. I think so, sweetheart. Would you like that? She nodded enthusiastically. He's nice, and brave, and he looks at you the way Prince Eric looks at Ariel." I laughed, both embarrassed and touched by her perception. "Does he now?" "Uh-huh. Like your magic." Before I could formulate a response to this observation, the cabin door opened. Alexander returned, fully dressed now in clothes Marcus must have provided. His expression was dark, his body tense with renewed anger. "What is it?" I asked, instantly alert to the change in him. "What did they leave?" "A warning," he said grimly. "Written in blood on the trunk of an ancient oak at the edge of the property. An oak sacred to both packs for generations." "What did it say?" He glanced at Lucy, clearly measuring his words. It was a quote from an old shifter text about the dangers of mixing blood between species, and beneath it, a crude drawing of a woman and child. The message is clear. They've accepted my victory for now, but they haven't given up their opposition to what they believe I represent. Fear clawed at my throat. Us. They haven't given up on targeting us. No. His jaw tightened. Which means I need to accelerate my plans, starting with securing the two of you. Securing us how? His eyes met mine, determination hardening his features into something regal and unyielding. By bringing you into the heart of shifter territory, under the full protection of my pack. To my home. Your home? Blackwell Estate, the ancestral seat of the Northern Alpha Line for over 200 years. The most heavily guarded location in the territory. He knelt before me, his voice softening. "It's the only place I can guarantee your safety while we determine our next steps." The thought of going from my small rented cottage to an estate grand enough to be the headquarters of a supernatural kingdom was overwhelming. Yet the alternative, remaining vulnerable to enemies I barely understood, was unthinkable with Lucy's safety at stake. "When?" I asked simply. "Now, as soon as possible. The pack is already preparing for our arrival." Lucy tugged at my sleeve, her expression a mixture of excitement and uncertainty. "Are we going to live in a castle, Mommy?" Alexander smiled at her, warmth breaking through his concern. "Not exactly a castle, little one, but there are towers and gardens and forests to explore." Her eyes widened. "Like in Beauty and the Beast?" "Something like that," he agreed, amusement briefly replacing the tension in his face. I looked between them, my daughter, already enchanted by the fairy tale unfolding around her, and this dangerous, compelling man who had shattered my understanding of reality and was now offering us sanctuary in his world. The rational part of my mind screamed caution, but something deeper, something that recognized the truth in Alexander's eyes when he spoke of prophecies and connections, pushed me forward. "Okay," I said, decision crystallizing. "We'll come to your home, but this isn't permanent. It's just until we figure out a safer solution." Relief and something more complex passed over his features. "Of course." Marcus appeared in the doorway again, this time accompanied by a petite woman with sharp features and assessing eyes. "The vehicles are ready, my king, and I've brought Elena to help with preparations." Alexander nodded. "Elena is my sister," he explained to me, "and much better at selecting women's clothing than I am." Elena stepped forward, her gaze traveling over me with curious intensity. "So you're the human healer everyone's talking about." A smile softened her scrutiny. "Welcome to our pack, Eliza, you and your daughter both." There was something ceremonial in her words, something that made them feel more significant than a simple greeting. Alexander's expression confirmed it. This was more than casual conversation. "Elena," he warned, his sister's smile widened. "Don't worry, brother. I'm not rushing anything, just acknowledging what everyone already sees." She turned to Lucy, her demeanor warming further. "And you must be the brave little girl who wasn't afraid of the big bad wolf. I've brought some clothes for you and your mother, and breakfast is waiting in the cars." As Elena led us to a back room where fresh clothing had been laid out, I caught Alexander watching me, his amber eyes unreadable. Something was shifting between us, around us. Forces set in motion by choices already made, and others still to come. I could feel the weight of expectation, of prophecy, of possibility settling around my shoulders like an invisible cloak. The morning sun broke fully over the horizon, painting the clearing golden through the windows. A new day, in a world forever changed. Lucy's small hand slipped into mine, warm and trusting. "It's going to be an adventure, Mommy," she whispered excitedly. Looking into Alexander's eyes across the room, at the promise and the danger they held in equal measure, I could only agree. "Yes, baby, it certainly is." Blackwell Estate materialized through the morning mist, like something from another century. A sprawling stone manor with ivy-covered walls and towering windows that caught the early sunlight. As our caravan of black SUVs approached through wrought iron gates, I felt Lucy press her face against the window, her breath fogging the glass. "It really is a castle," she whispered in awe. Beside me, Alexander smiled at her reaction. "My family has lived here for generations," he explained. "The original structure dates back to 1798, though we've made some modern improvements." The understatement became apparent as we entered the estate. Beyond its historic facade, Blackwell Manor was a perfect blend of old-world elegance and contemporary luxury. High ceilings with intricate moldings housed discreet security systems. Antique furniture coexisted with state-of-the-art technology. Yet what struck me most wasn't the opulence, but the sense of life within these walls. Dozens of people moved purposefully through the halls, some clearly shifters by the deference they showed Alexander, others human staff who seemed remarkably unfazed by the supernatural currents around them. "How many people know?" I asked, as Alexander led us through a grand foyer. "About what you are? At the estate?" "All of them. The human staff are either born into shifter families without the gene, or they've earned our trust over years of service." He gestured to an elderly man arranging flowers in a massive crystal vase. "Harold's family has served mine for 4 generations. His great-grandfather was my grandfather's confidant." Harold bowed slightly as we passed. "Welcome home, Your Majesty. And welcome to Blackwell, miss," he added with a warm smile for Lucy and me. Alexander showed us to a suite of rooms in the east wing, a spacious sitting area connected to 2 bedrooms, all decorated in soothing blues and creams. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked gardens that stretched to a forest edge in the distance. "These will be your quarters," he said, watching as Lucy immediately ran to examine the canopied bed in her room. "I hope they're comfortable." "They're bigger than our entire cottage," I replied, still struggling to reconcile this palatial setting with the reality of my life 24 hours ago. "Eliza," Alexander's voice softened as he stepped closer. "I know this is overwhelming, all of it. The pack, the danger, this place. But I meant what I said at the cabin. You're not alone anymore." The sincerity in his amber eyes made my throat tighten. Before I could respond, Elena appeared in the doorway. "The council has assembled, brother. They're waiting in the great hall." Alexander sighed. "Of course they are." He turned back to me. "I have to address my advisors about last night's events. Will you be all right here? Elena can show you around, and there are guards stationed throughout the wing." "We'll be fine," I assured him. "Go be a king." A smile touched his lips. "I'll return as soon as I can. We have much to discuss." After he left, Elena gave us a tour of the areas relevant to daily life, the kitchens where chefs prepared meals around the clock, the library with thousands of volumes including rare texts on shifter history, and the gardens where Lucy could play safely within the protected perimeter. "He's never brought humans here before," Elena commented as we watched Lucy chasing butterflies in a sunlit courtyard. "Not like this." "Like what?" Her knowing smile reminded me uncomfortably of her brother's. "Under his personal protection, in the family wing." She hesitated. "There are rumors spreading through the pack, about prophecies being fulfilled. Alexander mentioned something about that." "Did he tell you all of it? About the alpha and his human mate?" I nodded, embarrassment heating my cheeks. "He said prophecies are often self-fulfilling." "True, but some are simply destiny recognizing itself." Elena's expression grew serious. "My brother has never looked at anyone the way he looks at you, Eliza." Not in all his 36 years. I struggled to form a response, saved by Lucy running over with a fistful of wildflowers. "Mommy, look what I found. Can I put them in our room?" "Of course, sweetheart." I smoothed her blonde curls, grateful for the interruption. Later that evening, after Lucy had been fed and tucked into bed, I stood by the windows watching moonrise over the forest, The events of the past 24 hours replayed in my mind. The wounded wolf at my door, the battle at the cottage, Alexander's revelation about prophecies and mates. A soft knock drew me from my thoughts. Alexander entered, changed from the formal attire he'd worn to the council meeting into simple dark pants and a gray Henley that did nothing to diminish his commanding presence. "Your daughter is asleep?" he asked, joining me at the window. Out like a light. Today was a lot for her to process. And for you. I turned to face him fully. I keep thinking I'll wake up and find this was all some bizarre dream. And if it's not? His eyes held mine, searching. If this is your reality now, the question hung between us, laden with implications. Through the window, the moon illuminated the gardens where shifters in both human and wolf form patrolled the grounds. Beyond them lay a world I'd thought I understood. A life I'd carefully constructed for Lucy and myself, modest, but ours. And here stood this man, this king, offering something I hadn't dared dream of. Protection, belonging, perhaps even love. "I'm afraid," I admitted, the confession barely audible. "Of me?" The vulnerability in his question surprised me. "No." Of this feeling that my life has been set on a path I didn't choose. I stepped closer to him, close enough to feel the heat radiating from his skin, but also afraid that I'd choose it anyway, if given the chance. His hand rose to cup my cheek, his touch fever-warm and gentle. Some choices are made in our hearts long before our minds acknowledge them. As his lips met mine, the last fragments of my old reality fell away. This kiss held no hesitation, no uncertainty, only recognition, as if my soul had been waiting for this moment without my knowledge. His arms encircled me, strong and secure, and I felt something settle into place inside me. A piece I hadn't known was missing. When we finally parted, Alexander rested his forehead against mine. "Stay," he whispered. "Not just until it's safe. Stay and help me build a bridge between our worlds. Stay and be my queen in more than just Lucy's fairy tales." Outside, a chorus of howls rose from the forest. Not threatening now, but welcoming, a song of belonging, of home. And standing there in the circle of Alexander's arms, with my daughter sleeping peacefully in the next room, I found my answer in the steady beating of his heart against mine. Some choices are made in our hearts long before our minds acknowledge them. Mine had been made the moment I opened my door to a wounded wolf on a moonlit night. "Yes," I said simply, "we'll stay."